Hello and welcome to this special program on taxation and expectation of taxpayers from Union Budget. In this special program, we will discuss both direct and indirect taxes.
"36-year-old Aditya Mittal and his wife Shalini live with their 5-year-old son in the Delhi NCR region. It's a double income household. The Mittals pay an EMI of 25,000 rupees against their home loan. As a working couple, they have high expectations from this year's budget.
No, I am not very comfortable. So, frankly speaking, it is, I am expecting some more savings from this budget. बिकॉज हम दोनों अगर काम कर रहे हैं तो अपना जैसे तैसे हम अपना खर्चा निकाल पा रहे हैं, लेकिन मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये काफ़ी है।
अनकम्फर्टेबल तो देखिए है ही, 4-5 साल से अपवर्ड ही है, बढ़ ही रहा है, कम तो हमें लग नहीं रहा कि कहीं कम हो रहा है। ये है कि एक्सपेक्टेशन यही है कि जब इतना फ्यूल कॉस्ट कम हो रहा है तो उतना हमारे नॉर्मल उसमें ग्रॉसरी में, उसमें वेजिटेबल्स में वो चीज़ रिफ्लेक्ट होना चाहिए, दिखना चाहिए, लेकिन हमें जो कमती वो दिख नहीं रहा है उसके अंदर।
Mittal's story is not too different from that of 50-year-old S.N. Tiwari, though their profiles differ vastly. Tiwari is the sole wage earner of a family of 5. His 3 children are grown up. They're studying management, medicine and accountancy, and the cost of their studies takes up a large part of the monthly income. Tiwari has his eyes set on Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's proposals on personal income tax and any relief by way of deductions.
Yes, it should be at least 3 lakhs. One cannot expect 2 to 5, but 2 to 3 lakhs it is expected. And secondly, in 80C, there is a limit of 1.5 lakhs, which includes the refund of principal amount also. In addition to EPF, LIC and etc.
A quality education for their children, decent housing and some savings for the future. Isn't that all a middle-class person aspires to? But runaway inflation in the last 4 to 5 years has eroded savings and they seek relief from taxes.
वो डिस्पोजेबल इनकम ऑब्वियसली वुड अलाउ कि भी सेविंग भी हो जाएगी हमारा, और हम लोग अपना मेनली जो एक्सपेंडिचर है वो भी आराम से कर पाएंगे जो चाहते हैं। अगर डिस्पोजेबल इनकम ही कट डाउन हो जाएगी तो फिर आई थिंक सेविंग कट हो जाएगी, एक्सपेंडिचर भी उतना नहीं हो पाएगा जितना हम करना चाहते हैं।
Under the present tax structure, there is 0% tax on annual income of up to 2.5 lakh rupees, 10% income tax on income between 2.5 and 5 lakhs, 20% tax on income between 5 lakhs and 20 lakhs and 30% tax on income above 10 lakh rupees.
At this moment, exemption limit is 2.5 lakhs. It is not up to the expectation. We need the original proposal which was mentioned in DTC, Direct Tax Code, so that minimum exemption limit should be 5 lakhs. And up to 5 lakhs, there should not be any tax, so that one can have the cash in hand to spend. And indirectly, that will benefit to the government also.
Another area of concern for the middle class is housing. In his interim budget in July last year, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley acknowledged that housing remained an area of concern for the middle and lower middle class due to high cost of financing. To reduce this burden, Jaitley raised the deduction limit on account of interest on loan in respect of self-occupied house property from 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh rupees.
जो अभी 2 लाख है, आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग कि वो कम से कम 2.5 या 3 लाख होना चाहिए, क्योंकि जिस तरीके का अभी आपका हाउसिंग लोन जो है वो अभी 10.25% के आसपास चल रहा है, तो उस हिसाब से किसी भी अगर आप उसको देखेंगे डबल इनकम ग्रुप वाले को, तो 30-35 लाख का लोन एक बड़ी आम सी बात है आज की डेट में, तो उस हिसाब से मुझे लगता है ये 2 लाख का कंजम्पशन कम है।
The salaried class, Mittal, who works in the private sector, or public sector employees like Tiwari, have both been paying hefty EMIs on their home loans. A large part of their EMIs goes into interest on repayment of home loan. High cost of acquisition of property in metros and a ceiling of 2 lakh rupees on deductions from income on interest paid is not enough, as actual interest paid on housing loan is much higher than the deduction. Tax experts and economists justify the demand of middle-class salaried citizens for a liberal tax regime that leaves more money in their hands and also provides options for housing and future savings.
The Finance Minister will have enough space to accommodate this demand. But more importantly, why is this demand made? That is more important to analyze. People are making this demand because they are finding that their purchasing power is being eroded.
Experts say this deduction of 2 lakh rupees should be extended to other loans such as personal loans or vehicle loans.
Now this benefit is not available to large section of taxpayers, so it's not a fair system. It's an interest subsidy. If the government is providing an interest subvention, it's better that it provides it for all kinds of loans. Then leave it to the taxpayer to decide what is important for him, whether a home loan is important for him or an education loan is important for him. Maybe for some section of taxpayers is children's education, which will be important, a matter of greater priority.
The medium income group is also not happy with the deduction. Besides, poor exemptions allowed on medical expenses. Cost of treatment has gone up significantly, but the ceiling on exemptions under medical expenses remains 15,000 rupees.
15,000 की लिमिट आज की डेट में बहुत कम है। अगर आप किसी भी हॉस्पिटल में जाते हैं तो 500,000 रुपये एक बड़े आराम से आपको डॉक्टर को दिखाने का फ़ीस देना होता है। उसके अलावा दवाइयाँ हैं, कुछ और खर्चे होते हैं। तो 15,000 रुपये बिल्कुल भी पर्याप्त नहीं है। किसी भी मध्यम वर्गीय परिवार के लिए आज की डेट में 20 से 25,000 रुपये मिनिमम खर्चा होता है।
After housing comes education, another major constraint in a middle-class budget. Last year, the Finance Minister retained education cess for all taxpayers at 3%. Although the government levies a surcharge to improve the state of education, a big grudge stands out in the middle class, having to send their children to expensive private schools, all because of the shabby state of government school education.
Regarding my house, सबसे बड़ा तो बेटे का एजुकेशन है। एजुकेशन nowadays is very costly, तो उसमें एक्सपेक्टेशन ये है कि भाई अच्छा अगर हमें गवर्नमेंट स्ट्रक्चर मिल जाए तो प्राइवेट की तरफ हम लोग नहीं जाएं। तो एक वो भी है कि वो कट डाउन करेगा बहुत हमारे एक्सपेंसेस।
पढ़ाई में तो बहुत खर्च होती है, कई तनख्वाह का ज़्यादातर हिस्सा पढ़ाई में ही चली जाती है। घर का बजट तो थोड़ा टाइट हो।
आप चाहती हैं कि सरकार ऐसे मेजर ले जिससे
हम देखें ना, एक कोचिंग का 1-1 लाख रुपया साल कर लेता है, तो महंगी तो है। जिसके 3 बच्चे हैं उसके तो ज़्यादा खर्च है, उसी में जाएंगे, फिर घर का बजट तो गड़बड़ आता ही है।
The third factor for the middle class, usually after housing and education in priority, is financial security for the future. There's no denying that saving for retirement and medical expenses at old age is a high concern area. Concerned over drop in gross domestic savings that came down to 30.1% of the GDP in 2012-13 compared with 33.7% in 2009, Jaitley increased the investment limit under Section 80C of the Income Tax Act to 1.5 lakh rupees from 1 lakh. The middle class wants this limit to be further enhanced this time. Experts point out that raising the investment limit is crucial to boosting domestic savings. Experts justify demands of the salaried class as this section has been impacted by runaway inflation in the last several years.
See, one expectation that the salaried class this time would have is some relief on threshold or some increased limit for savings, largely because the last 3-4 years have seen consistently 10% consumer price inflation. Now, if 5 years of 10% consumer price inflation means your your income is already eroded in real terms by some 60-70%.
The salaried section forms the backbone of India's middle class. It is this section that dutifully pays its taxes and contributes to national development. But it wants more disposable money in its hands, better education for its children, and some savings for the future. This section seeks a liberal tax regime that helps them fulfill these aspirations.
From ordinary taxpayers, that they would like to be left with more money in their pocket, that's a fair expectation to have. Now, it's another question whether in the fiscal situation that he is facing this year now, whether the finance minister has the leeway of doing it by how much is the question. Otherwise, in terms of the desirability of it, there is no question that it will be a very good thing to do.
Jaitley did not make any changes in the corporate tax rate or surcharge either for corporates, individuals or Hindu undivided families, commonly known as HUFs. He did announce several measures to boost investment in the real estate and power sectors and made it easier for foreign companies to invest in India. He also assured foreign and domestic investors on a stable tax policy.
It is time for a small break. On the other side, we will discuss indirect taxes. Welcome back. In this segment, we will discuss indirect taxes. These taxes are collected on production and supply of goods and services. In this segment, we will also discuss industry expectation and options before Finance Minister.
Like the middle class, industry and traders too have high expectations from the Finance Minister. After 2.5 years of sub 5% growth, the Modi government brought industry some cheer. Stock markets have soared to historic highs as the benchmark BSE Sensex hovers at around the 29,000 point mark.
There is huge amount of, I would say, euphoria in the country that the country is going to do well and therefore growth should pick up because expectations are doing well. If growth picks up, revenue automatically picks up. And on one hand you have curtailment of expenditure, on the other hand you have higher growth in the economy, higher revenue, so deficit indicators are certainly going to come down.
However, that growth does not reflect on tax collections. In 2011-12, the tax GDP ratio was 5.5% for direct taxes and 4.4% for indirect taxes. This is among the lowest for any large developing country. Then Finance Minister P. Chidambaram termed this figure inadequate for India's developmental goals because just 4 years earlier, tax to GDP ratio had already reached 12%. Yet, Chidambaram did not change the basic customs duty of 10% for non-agricultural products. He also retained the normal excise duty rate and service tax rate at 12%.
Where India has signed IT agreement, where we have already reduced the duty to zero, you can't do anything on the basic custom duty. But there are in a number of commodities where we have not gone to binding rates. Where is the reason why we should charge much lower rate, whereby encourage the imports into India other than manufacturing in India? So increase it to 15%, make it not attractive, and we are still within the GATT bounds. So therefore, there is a case for increasing the custom duty to some extent.
Any upward revision in these duties would have resulted in revenue buoyancy. However, as a bold step, he expanded the scope of service tax by imposing it on supply of all services except those that were put in a small negative list.
My proposal in relation to service tax are in line with these objectives. To broaden the tax base in services tax, it is necessary to prune the negative list and exemptions to the extent possible. Accordingly, the negative list has been reviewed.
On taking charge of the Finance Ministry in May 2014, Arun Jaitley further pruned the negative list and imposed service tax on sale of space or time for advertisements in all media other than print.
Amongst indirect taxes, service tax has shown the highest rate of growth. Since my overall objective is to prepare that indirect tax regime for a smooth transition to goods and services changes have been kept minimal at this stage. The twin object of this sector of indirect taxes are to widen the tax base and enhance compliance.
Jaitley also raised penalties on non-payment of service tax beyond 6 months to 24% from 18% per annum. For further delay of up to 6 months, 30% interest was to be charged.
Because if there is higher tax compliance, obviously all your fiscal targets will fall in place. Now, one of the suggestions that I have is we need to incentivize individuals who pay their taxes properly. We need to incentivize tax collectors who do their job very well, and we also need to incentivize intelligence informants who provide information where tax evasion is taking place.
India's markets are flooded with cheap imports from East Asian countries, including China.
It will be easier for people to import paying lower custom duty than manufacturing in India. Therefore, there could be a good case for increasing the custom duty at least to 15%, at a 5% price increase, which will definitely give the breather for the manufacturing in India. That is first.
To boost domestic manufacturing under the Make in India initiative, Arun Jaitley also imposed customs duty on import of telecommunication equipment.
To the Make India program, we must make India real. What are the problems which are facing manufacturing sector today? We have lowered the custom duties to the level of 10% or even lower for a number of commodities, even though our commitment to the GATT is much higher. Therefore, actually we could have gone up more. To this extent, the reduction in custom duty has actually put tremendous pressure on the manufacturing sector in India.
Jaitley also tried to address the issue of inverted duty structure, basically a situation where duties on imported raw material is higher than duties collected on import of finished goods. But he did not make any changes in the basic excise duty rate structure, with the general effective rate continuing at 12.36%.
Today the excise duty leviable is 12%. If the government comes with an incentive that if you manufacture goods in India and the value addition from what you brought and what you ultimately sell is at least 50%, then you will pay excise duty 9% only and not 12%. That is 3% reduction. That is 25% off.
Experts say the government must devise a mix of excise duty and income tax concessions coupled with increase in customs duty to revive manufacturing.
If a situation of this nature is made, then there will be tremendous boost in the manufacturing in India. Simultaneously, if we also give 3%, 5% reduction in income tax in respect to the profit earned with regard to the goods produced in India when it is sold in the market, these three put together will give you a tremendous boost.
Some feel the Finance Minister may tweak service tax and excise duty rates in preparation for implementation of GST from April 2016.
GST from 1st of April next means 2016. Then he should be moving in that direction, in the direction of aligning the central excise rate and the central services tax rate to the eventual revenue neutral rate. So the Finance Minister, if he moves in that direction, he would also indicate where the revenue neutral GST rate would eventually be.
Economists suggest special measures to revive the housing sector in this budget, as it will lead to job creation in the construction sector in addition to providing affordable housing to the middle class.
Housing sector is reasonably labor intensive, create jobs for the youth, especially where the unemployment rate is about 25% in the youth category now. Housing is very important. It also, one single house involves about 270 industries. So if you kickstart housing, you kickstart growth in 270 industries.
Economic experts also rule out any major reduction in social sector spending to restore fiscal health of the economy.
I think that after this AAP victory, the climate changes, the psychology changes, you will see that the budget will provide for, it will not drastically or sharply cut, welfare spending. If anything, Modi will keep welfare spending on track, at least in real terms. And there will be a change in the way BJP looks at welfare.
Overall, experts are optimistic about Finance Minister Arun Jaitley's first full budget. They say the drastic drop in crude prices makes it a lot easier for the Finance Minister to improve tax buoyancy and restore fiscal health of the economy.
Well, I think he's been presented with a golden opportunity. This is actually a golden opportunity for India, which has been important, has been dependent on imports for key commodities, including energy, oil imports. Now, in the oil sector itself, there has been substantial savings in subsidy because international oil prices have come down.
I am convinced that the Finance Minister will bring them down. It's not only that he has a strong resolve, it's just the luck factor also. The subsidies are coming down on its own, they are an expenditure item. If growth picks up, revenue automatically picks up. And on one hand you have curtailment of expenditure, on the other hand you have higher growth in the economy, higher revenue. So deficit indicators are certainly going to come down.
So much rights on the first full budget of Arun Jaitley. On the one hand, he has to deal with high expectations of those who voted NDA government to the power. On the other hand, he has to deal with changed socio-political realities after Delhi Assembly elections and protest over government's bold economic policies, including land acquisition law. Thanks for watching this special program. Keep watching Rajya Sabha television.